Hello, everyone. Yeah, I just unmuted it. I almost did it again, but I caught myself and I unmuted it after my first hola. I vow not to do that again. Hey, Lyle. Where are we at here? Oh, that's me. That's you. Mike is here. Aloha. Greetings, Cecil. Good to see you. Jeffrey's here. Hello. We got Rich. Good afternoon. There's Barry. Donuts and coffinol. I got coffinol. I don't have donuts. I hope none of you guys drank your developer last week. Weren't we talking about drinking developer? Caffinol. Don't drink the developer, kids. Cinnamon, I hope. I love cinnamon. Barry thought you were bringing the donut. I know. Someone has to bring the donuts. Hello, Mike. I hope you're having a good Memorial Day weekend. I am having a real good one, Cecil. It's been a little bit of a daisy cray today. Mainly just because I'm always so far behind on everything. Hey, Steven. Hey, there's Lawrence. Hello, my friend. Glad you're here. All right, I'll call you Larry since you just gave me permission. Looking forward to this one. Yeah, so am I. Before I begin, though, let's all give thanks to our wonderful servicemen and women on this glorious Memorial Day weekend. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I am one of the biggest supporter and proponents of first responders and military that you will ever find. So thank you if you are an active or no longer active member of our military or military abroad. Thank you so much for your service. All right, you know, I want to tell you guys something really quick before we get rolling, and something I'm thinking of doing next. I was going to do my Simplex pocket camera, but I won't discuss it too much in this particular video, but I'll just say things didn't work out too well with that. I scanned that roll of film today. Yeah. Anyway, and if you don't remember what it was, it's this. You guys remember, if you were here, was it last week I talked about it? If you were here last week, it was this little camera here. It's made by a company called Simplex. It was made by, I think, in the 30s. But it takes a 50-foot cartridge in the back. Yeah, you guys remember this. It takes like one of these funky cartridges. Well, I reloaded the cartridge with some Tri-X and I filmed, and I was all excited. I was going to be my next video, and voila. We'll get into it later. But you'll probably see a camera review on that, but oh man. You know, that's another thing I want to touch on really quick. I've not been the most consistent with posting videos. Let me tell you, when you do everything yourself, and by everything I don't mean, you know, running a channel. I mean everything as in shooting the film, coming up with an idea, shooting the film, processing the film, scanning the film, drying the film, color correcting the film, uploading the film, and then shooting a video to talk about the film. Things don't always go as planned. Now, I love to do it, but it doesn't always work out that way. It's not always as easy as you might think. And some of you have YouTube channels and you can relate. So I know it's been like a week and a half since I posted a video, a normal, regular video, but things just didn't work out. Like I was saying, that was my plan for my next video. I don't like have stacks of videos ready to go to just upload. I kind of do them on demand, and I demand them. So it's a little different with this kind of channel, and you'll see tonight when we're going to talk about it. Especially with processing, things don't always go the way you hope. Well, yeah, the way you hope. Who we got? Mike, I'm going to send you a question about some 16mm footage I shot this weekend. Absolutely, Barry. By the way, Barry, did you email me or message me on Facebook? I thought I got a notification a while back. I'm so bad, guys. I rarely check Facebook anymore. The best way to get me is email. I check my email many times a day, and I get the alert on my phone. Facebook I'm terrible at. Instagram I'm getting better. But Facebook is, I've had a Filmboy24 Facebook page that I had plans for, and I was gonna, you know, keep up with it, and I just, I'm not a Facebook guy. I'm really not. If you're friends with me on Facebook, my regular page or wall, whatever you call it, I rarely post, and when I do, it's like a picture of my kid or something. Yeah, email me, Barry. Yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me. All right, one thing I want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on this? Those in the know will know. So I have this roll of film. Everybody knows what that is. It's a cartridge of 7294 100D. My lighting in here, I don't want to glare. You guys know what that is. So I want to do a little experiment because that's what I do. I want to shoot the world's most expensive roll of Super 8 film. As we all know, this is the most expensive roll of Super 8 film. And once they get the carts, you know, running properly, probably worth it because it's beautiful film. But I want to shoot that roll of film in the world's cheapest Super 8 camera. And when I mean cheapest, I don't just mean money-wise. I mean cheapest. And we're only, I was a couple minutes late, so we're really only about 7 minutes in. So I want to show this to you guys real quick. I plan on doing a video. It's probably going to be a very short video about this camera. If you're not familiar with Bentley, they were a company, they were more prevalent in the 80s, I believe, than they were in the 70s, but they were an 80s company that put out some things that were almost Fisher-Price-like. And this is one such example. In the box, by the way, this camera's like new, and it really is like new, and I'll tell you how much I paid for it in just a minute. But you get the owner's manual. I don't even know why you need that, but you do get one. And you get, I don't know if this is everything you got with it brand new, because it's not brand new, but new to me. You also got a lens hood, which is it's a pretty good little lens hood, actually. Pretty good solid plastic. But everything in this camera and everything about this camera is plastic. Has a nice little case. I mean, at first glance, you're kind of excited about it. Comes in a nice little zippered case that goes around the camera. Look at this. Boom. The Bentley Bx720 Super 8 movie camera. Again, I'm going to do a quick video. You know how I'd like to do my video, my breakdowns of these cameras. So I'm thinking about shooting this roll of film in this camera. So let's see. And by the way, it's only, one thing I do like, it's only manual exposure. See the lens right there? It's a fixed focus lens, so you can't focus it, but look at that. You go from like F, is it 2.8? F2.8 all the way up to 16, or all the way down to 16, and somebody wants to pop in and say hi really quick. I can't do a live stream without my baby. You want to say hi?
Hi.
This is Piper, if you don't know. I'm sure you're used to seeing her. She's my baby.
And this is Ellie.
Who is it?
Ellie Boo.
Is that our goat?
Yep, it's our
Me and
goat.
Piper say she's our goat. No reason, just she's a four-legged animal. All right, I love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Okay, bye, Ellie.
And maybe we'll be riding in a shopping cart with her.
All right, maybe when we're done. Anyway, back at it. Nice goat. Hey, there's radios. So this, wait till you hear it. I'm almost done, I promise. But when you open it, you get no markings whatsoever. It's very, very, very generic. No markings. You have an on-off. I know I'm probably giving the video away, but I'm still going to do it. You have an on and off switch, and a film counter, and a diopter adjuster here, which I'm glad because I wear glasses and I need it. And you have an all plastic lens. And yes, I mean plastic, all plastic lens. Listen to this thing. All right, enough about that. But I'm excited about this actually because I'm dying to see what we can get from this film in this beast. I think it's going to be a going to be a fun little challenge. What did I miss? What do we got going on here? Oh, Jeffrey, I got my camera. It works. Even the cellular. Oh, looks like it never left the case. Not a scratch on it, but also the film might be a challenge. So, what? Refresh my memory. Which camera was that? I can't remember. Bumble ads. Do you guys get ads when you watch these live? You shouldn't, but I don't know. I'm here this week. All right, you made it. Did you get your notification radios? Hey, how are you, Gordon? Good to see you, my friend from Maine. I was just talking to my wife the other day about how bad we want to go to Maine. I've never been. I've been all up in there, but I've never been quite as far as Maine. I like the 729 but it is very expensive. Yes. Your Bentley B3 never worked. Now, I've not used a B3. I did have a Bentley, one of the old Bentley TVs, a little black and white screen, and it was, yeah. Oh, you had one. Okay, I just read that. Nice goat. If you use the case as a pattern for soundproofing, not a bad idea. I'll tell you what, I wonder if with the case on, does it alleviate any of that hideous noise whatsoever? Let's turn it on. I know I shouldn't leave batteries in it, but I plan on using it real soon. Let's turn it on with the case on. It's just as loud. But I know what you mean. You can make a nice soundproof. I have all kinds of fabric. I can't call it material. My wife gets mad when I call fabric material because she went to fashion design school many moons ago, and they would get in trouble if they called fabric material. I call it. So that's the Bentley Bx720. Let me put this away. Lens hood. I mean, the lens hood, I think. By the way, yeah, I told you guys I would tell you how much I paid. I did have to pay shipping, but if I were in front of the seller, they would have accepted my, the actual price I paid. So that's kind of, I mean, you have to pay shipping. That's part of the buying experience. $10. $10. $42 if you buy it from Kodak. $10, $42. We're going to see what happens. I'm going to put this down there and catch up. Well, And by the way, I'm full disclosure, I'm going to talk about some of the tanks and things that I use and the processes that I go through for Cine film. I literally, half an hour ago, 20 minutes before I popped the little making coffee, which I really was, I finished processing a roll of film in this because I forgot it was loaded and I wanted to talk about and show this tank. So I just finished a 16mm found film roll. And who is texting me? Oh, that's my ring. You can hear it make plasticky sounds. Yeah, Stephen, you can. It sounds so Fisher-Price. So Fisher-Price. Not that that's anything bad against Fisher-Price. I mean, I got 2 kids. It's Fisher-Price, Want an eBay auction on RCA camera supply for a RCA camera supply. It's camera supply. Nice. It sounded like a bubble gun. Because the USB load. Oh, power. I got you. Power supply. Very good. Very good. Keystone K612 Super 8. Yeah, I'd like to know how well that works out for you, Jeffrey. Wait, did you say it didn't run? Let me scroll back up. Got my camera, it works. Even this, oh, it does work. Oh, cool. But the film might be a challenge. Is that manual exposure? It shouldn't be that big of a problem. If it's got manual exposure, I don't know. I can't picture the Keystone K612 right now, but I didn't get a notification, but I caught it on my app. Nice. $72.94 is expensive. $12 processing. Yeah, that's from Dwayne's, right? That's a good deal. That's a really good deal. In fact, such a good deal that I'm probably going to send them some. Which kind of defeats the purpose of what I like to do. Only just because I'm curious. Don't buy the VGA to HDMI cable. It's for an old computer. It doesn't work. Noted. Yeah, and you know what's funny, Cecil? The 7294 is $12. I have been reading some not so favorable reviews about Dwayne's, although they've been around for 180 years or so. But I've never used them personally. I've always heard, I mean, I have always heard good things about them until recently for some reason. I don't know why. I certainly would not say anything negative about them. I've never used them, but their pricing, how can you beat it? Now, once you get into 16 millimeter, their pricing starts getting a little more comparable to other companies like Spectra and them. No manual. Oh, it has pins. They only look like ASA 23, so if there is. Yeah, it's probably that 25 to 160 ASA, which you could get away. I mean, you could still get away with some of the film stocks. I would be weary of all of them, maybe. 25. Yeah, I knew what you meant. It should still go to 160 though. If it only has one pin, it would be the 2540. 2540, 100, 160, I believe, Jeffrey. You should be fine with anything, 50 to 200 ASA or ISO. So that 100, problem is, it's going to read that film as 160 film, and I'm pointing down here. It's going to read that 100D, I'm pretty sure, as ASA 160, which means you're going to go on the wrong side of it. Probably. In other words, it's going to want to underexpose it. And you already want to overexpose that film by about a half a stop anyway. Well, that's good to hear, Cecil. No complaints. I've used it for decades. Most recently, about 3 months ago. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm not nervous at all about sending my film to them. They've been around for so long, and they're a very reputable company. What do you got there, Lyle? You got your 2 rolls of Kodak for my fest short, but I got a letter. If they are stuck in customs here in Poland. Has anyone else ever had that happen? Paid the VAT already. We don't have to pay VAT here when it comes here to the U.S. But I have heard some stories about that, sadly. So my cringers are frost. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated too. Radios. You're in Australia? I can't remember. I have to make some small mistakes actually, but they always come through. Oh, that's good. That's really good to hear. But here's the thing with me, and here's one of the main reasons I haven't used Dwayne's. Now, to say I haven't used them, I haven't intentionally used them. That doesn't mean when I took my film somewhere back in the 90s or in the early 2000s when they were starting to phase out Kodachrome processing and whatnot. That's not to say it didn't get sent to Dwayne, so I probably did use Dwayne's at some point. I just didn't know about it. And there was a company in Sweden. I think they were like right at the cusp of processing K14 with Dwayne's. Dwayne's was the last, but I think they were closely behind. So I feel like I probably have used Dwayne's. Who hasn't? If you shot Kodachrome, you probably have. But with me, personally, I do it all myself. Now, some people have asked me. I get a lot of emails and I get messages a lot on Instagram lately. But I get a lot of emails and people ask. I've had people ask why my results aren't as good as labs and why this and that in a nice way. And they've kind of answered their own question because I process everything here myself, whereas a lab uses these, $200,000-$300,000 processing machines that do everything for them, and they're what they have to be conscious of is keeping the chemicals to the right pH and all the right balances and temperatures. So with me, I keep it to close to the right temperature, process, and then I'm done. And then next time I want to process it again, if it's ECN2 or E6, I heat it back up. Hopefully it's near the right temperature, and I process it again. So it's a lot different when you home process versus when you send it to a lab. I tell people all the time, you are never, ever going to get lab results in a Lomo tank or in one of these. which you're going to see in a second. I think you all know what these are too. We'll also get into a little bit of this little Patterson reel that I cut down, which I have a complete video on how you can do this. This was not my original idea. I modded it just a little bit, but this was an idea I saw online. I can't remember where, but in the video that I made, that link is in there if you want to see the original video. But I like processing film. Somebody else, I think maybe it was Cecil that made a comment, because I said something in a video that this whole environment here is me on the links, if you know what I mean. This is what my father-in-law plays golf 3 or 4 times a week, and he absolutely loves it. He's a golfer. That's his film work. For me, this is my golf. Some people just love the look of film. They love the feel of film. They love that organic nature of film and the beauty that it brings out. And they like to get behind the camera and shoot and then send their film to a lab and get the best possible results they can get. And I can 100% appreciate that as well, because who wouldn't want the best possible results? But for me personally, I also like the process of the process. It's very, what's the word? Is it cathartic? To me, it's so relaxing to me to stand in there in that 1978 kitchen, still looks like a 1978 kitchen, and process my own film. It's a lot of fun to shoot it, as we all know, because pretty much everybody shoots it. But man, once you step into that next level of film work and you get your hands dirty and you start processing your own film, and then you go one more step and you start scanning your own film, I mean, you are just, come on, people, come on. That to me is just better than, stop. Yeah, postal services, especially international, it's just so hit or miss. Oh, radios, you're in Nebraska. Why did I think you were not? Okay. Might as well be Australia, the American outback. Woo! Dwayne's has always been good to me, but I go there in person. Oh yeah, but you are right there in Kansas, right? Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. I wish we had a lab. We did. We had one down South Florida, but they're long gone. The closest lab to me, I think, is Kodak lab in Atlanta. No Huntsman spiders. Things are huge. No big spider. We get some nasty spiders here. You know, you live in Florida, you get all kinds of creepers. Going to refrain, get a new camera for a while, need a new computer. I need a new computer too. You guys will laugh. I use a laptop for all this laptop right here is relatively new, Windows 10. But my desktop computer that I do a lot of my work on is Windows 7. And I've had it for about 12 years. And when I finally get my Mark II, I'd like to run it on my desktop computer, so I need a new computer too. Hey Bonnie, what camera would you recommend buying if you want to be able to shoot 400-foot rolls of 16mm film? You know, that's a good question, Bonnie. I have 2 cameras that I use personally if I want to shoot 400-foot rolls of film, and they're both, I would say, similar in price. My favorite that I own, I haven't owned all the cameras for 16mm that will shoot 400 feet, but the favorite that I personally have owned, I've owned Aerocons and some others that will shoot 16. I've had a couple of these, and I have to say this is my favorite. For quality, it's a pin register camera. This is an Aeroflex 16ST, same as the S, but I think it has a one of the lens mounts, I think, was a turret mount, or I don't know what the T means, to be honest with you. The other camera that I have sitting up there, it's a Cinema Product CP16. you know, it's a tight race for me between those two because this camera is really loud. That camera up there is completely silent, and it was made for news gathering. It had to be silent, and it's a sound camera. You can take the sound module out, which I would recommend doing. It's real simple. It's plug and play. The CP16s are a little bit cheaper than the Aeroflexes, and they're pretty abundant, but so are these. But they will both shoot 400-foot rolls. The good thing about the Aeroflex is it will also shoot a 100-foot load without the magazine on top. This one doesn't have the 400-foot magazine currently attached to it. You have to pop this little piece off the top here. But it'll take 100-foot load, so you could put, I don't have it, but you put your spool of film inside here, and you can just carry this instead of the big magazine on top as well. The battery is not attached to the camera. You have to use a cable for the Aeroflex. For the CP16, the battery slides into the side of the camera. Those are my two recommendations for 400 foot of film. Yeah, I like that old time look. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I'm behind. Let me see if I can expand this a little bit. What do you think the best results of black and white film going to be all your older posts using new film? Okay. What do you think was your best results with black and white film? God, that's a good question. I have done so much black and white, Larry. There was a roll I did, it was Tri-X, I believe, which is not my favorite black and white film. I love Plus X. But it was my wife and my daughter out front skating on the street that I thought came out pretty good. That was Super 8. I have much better results in this tank than I do in this one over here. Can you guys see that? You will in a second. And I think it's because it's a 50-footer. I don't know. Black and white's easy. Easy. Cheapest. Oh, yeah, the 70HR. Yeah, you can add the... they're very bulky for 400 foot. MacBook M2. Yeah, I used to use Mac. I don't really use them anymore. I do use Apple Watch and iPad and iPhone, but I don't use the Mac computers anymore. One winning lottery ticket away from getting everyone new computers. Thank you, Mike. I'm in the same boat as you are. I feel the same, Mike. This is what. Yeah, Cecil. Yeah, you were talking about that in one of the posts. This is entertainment, man. This is my golf game. It's in color from out because it's a little. Yeah. I'm kind of getting that way with E6 stuff. I do so little E6 that, and the E6 chemicals are expensive. I don't mix my own E6. They're a little creepier chemicals. Sent off black and white. Shoot a lot of, and like you enjoy doing everything at home. Yeah. See, so I got a question for you. I've been meaning to ask you. What do you scan your film with? I was just curious. Yeah, radios. Eclair NPR is, I don't know if it's the priciest, but it's, I love those Eclair cameras. They're beautiful. The NPR and the ACL. The ACL is a little more portable, but we go pricey. We're going to talk about, you know, the Atons and you know, the Arri SR series. Those start getting ridiculously pricey. Cameras to get a new computer. Sent my last rolls, Gordon. Sent my last rolls of Kodachrome to Dwayne's last days of the film. The T-shirt to prove it. Can't remember the date. Wow, that's cool, Gordon. I remember those T-shirts. I wish I had one. Your wife shot some great black and white with you once. Yeah, I wish I could get her to do more, Cecil. Oh, you use a Wolverine Pro. That's what I thought. Okay. All right, guys. This is. I do a lot of film processing. I've done over 100 rolls so far this year, Cine film. Anytime you're going to do, this isn't necessarily true for any of the Vision stocks or any of the normal like black and white stocks like your 72, 78s, the old Tri-X or or even the Plus X stuff. Most Plus X's, 7265s, and a lot of that stuff, or the 31, they'll have very similar processing times and temperatures, but anytime you're going to do Kodachrome, and that's one of the main reasons I built this, but anytime you're going to do Kodachrome, anything, unless it's new chrome or maybe even iffy chrome. You remember iffy chrome? That was Kodachrome from the mid 90s, where kind of iffy if you're going to get good images or really bad images. But if you're going to do anything older than that, anything from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you really should do a test strip. And I meant to bring it in here, but it's just a very simple little 3-tube little contraption that I threw together in about 15 minutes, where I pour a little bit of chemical in each one of them. I go into the dark room and I take a strip of film, I don't know, about 8 inches long, and you start dunking it. And you'll dunk it for a minute, and then dunk it for another minute, and dunk it for another minute. You know, you have your times, and you got a little timer there. I use my gray built timer. And then when you're done, you pull it, you rinse it. It's a very quick process. You don't have to get into washing and all that stuff. And then you just fix it for 5 minutes, turn on your lights, and then you can see your different, you know, what your different times do to that particular roll of film. And that's especially important when you are using Kodachrome or processing Kodachrome. In fact, the roll I did just before I started my live stream was an old Kodachrome from the 60s, I believe. But I was in such a hurry, to be honest, I just did 3 minutes and 15 seconds and pulled it. So it's drying now. I don't know what came of it. But this is the little contraption that everybody knows what these little Patterson 2-reel tanks are. They're very plentiful. And it's 35 and 120 film processing tanks. And it's these little Patterson reels that you can turn into 120 reels, just like that. I think it actually goes one more. Yeah, that's 120. It'll do three sizes. I usually only do 35. Oh, 127, that's right. 35, 127, and 120 and 620 film. But anyway, these are very plentiful. They're all over the internet. They still make them. But this is for 16 millimeter. So you just unsnap the top. You take this little black plastic ring off. You know what this is made from? You know what that is? That is a 35 millimeter film canister. And then you just pop your reel apart, just like this. So it takes a little bit of cutting. You do destroy one reel. It takes a little bit of cutting. I have full instructions on that video if you're interested in making one of these. And then you just twist this little thing back on, snap it back in place, just like so. And there you have it. Now it doesn't stop. You know, the Pattersons actually stop, because you end up having to cut that little stop off, but it's easy enough to do. You could still ratchet your 16 millimeter film right on there. This will hold about 5 feet of film. These hold about 5 feet. So you can get about 5 feet of 16 millimeter on here if you're curious, if your camera works. Pop it in there. It takes very little chemical, very little chemical. You could probably get away with about 100 milliliters in there, maybe 200, be safe. And then just use it just like your regular Patterson tank. Remjet removal, you may or may not want to until the end, I don't know. But a great little thing to either test. A lot of times when I buy expired, or when I buy film that's past its freshness date, I will, especially if it's been opened, because sometimes the seal is open. Sometimes I'll take it and I'll cut a little piece of it off and I'll load it in here and I'll process it just to make sure it's not already been shot by somebody. And that's happened a couple of times. In fact, I processed a roll of film yesterday that I thought was new. The seal was broken, and I was going in there in the dark room to load up that little packet, and I snipped, and I felt the end. It had a little tail, like a fish tail. It was a V cut in the back of it, and we all know when that V is in the back of it, you're at the other end of the film. And it was a 100-foot roll. Well, I processed that yesterday, and it's found film. Try it, 7278. So, I love this for experimentation. It gives you 5 feet of film, any kind of 16 millimeter film, or you could also process what's that film that's 16 millimeters? The APS film. Is it APS? No. 110. 110 film in there. Whew. Ooh, 2009 was the last for Kodachrome processing. Yeah, sad. So awesome. So awesome. Thanks, Lyle. Split reel. Yeah, I don't have a split reel. I have some 60mm film cores I bought in 2009. Still haven't seen yet. What? Yikes. It's like a fine here, double exposed. Did you ever use the Cine monobath for black and white? No, Larry, I have not. If you're asking me, I've used Cine. What did I use? Their ECN2, but I've never used their monobath. I've heard good things about it though. D96, no, I have not. I've used D96, but not theirs. Yeah. So this is a pencil. This is something that I probably could not live without. This is the Lomo UpB1A processing tank. It is capable of processing, I almost said 8mm, but it is, but we'll kind of get to that in a second. Super 8, 16mm, double 8, which is 16mm, and 35mm Cine film. Now, I made this little doily. You guys have seen this in a lot of my videos. It doesn't come with them, but just to sort of keep out light. See that? So, I want to be careful with this, because this is Bakelite, and it breaks. Everybody here probably has seen these, I'm sure. Pardon me. Spacer, which is needed when you're just doing one roll of film. Center post, which comes apart in two. I've used this tank at least twice a week, probably for the last 3 years. And it comes with a bottom spiral. I call these spirals. I don't know what they're actually called, a reel or a spiral. I call it a spiral because remember the old spirographs? You know, you did the thing and it kept getting bigger and bigger. So it comes with a bottom spiral and the center is threaded. Then it comes with a scoot over. It comes with a middle spiral and it's not threaded. See there? And the hole is a little bit bigger. And then it comes with what I just call a top cap. That's all, no threads. It also came with a couple of threads, little spacers that you can screw onto the top of the top cap for upside down for 35mm work. And you could also screw on to the bottom of the middle spiral. But there's no reason to. I hardly ever use those. So for Super 8, you simply take, I have a couple of videos where I show how to load these, but you simply take the bottom spiral and you take the top cap with the flange facing up, and that's it. That's it. Your film sits right in between there and you spool it on. You gotta like wrap it around this little gate area here, thread it on, screw this little piece on. Where did I put it? Is it inside? Yep. You need your spacer right there. Pop that in and then tighten that down, and then look at that. Now for 16mm, it's very simple. You just flip this over. You don't need anything. You just flip it over, put that back in. Now we have 16mm. See there? And sound effects. Those are the two things that I use most. Because if I'm doing Super 8, double 8, regular 8, or 16mm, and it's only one roll, then it's that easy. If you're doing 2 rolls of Super 8, this, I don't want to drop it, becomes your top cap. So you start your film, hold it down to the side, you put this on. Oh, you don't use the spacer. Screw down, tighten it down, and there you go. Now you thread your film, right? Thread it just like you did with the top cap. when it's completely threaded, you have to unscrew this. This can be a little bit tricky, but you have to unscrew this, like this, which you just take the top half of that center post out, like that, so we're still connected. Then you start your second roll of film, put your top cap on right over there, boom, back on, and then you thread that second roll of film right on. Now I use that a lot too. If I can, then I always like to do 2 rolls at once. It just makes life that much easier. I got the chemicals out. If it's ECN2, they're already up to temperature, and you know, it makes everything so much easier to do. Do them 2 at a time. And like I say, I use this thing every week. Every single week, this thing is in my kitchen processing film. Yeah, man, the time is flying, isn't it? Jeez. Yes, that's on my list. That's on my list right now, Bonnie. I have seen the Filmomat. Noah over at Analog Resurgence did a pretty good review of that. There's a couple things I don't like about it. Mainly, it's very expensive, but I mean, you do get what you pay for. But I did not like, he used the standalone one. They also make one that sits down inside their tank. I'm talking about Filmomat, that sits into their processing tank, and it spins like this way, and you only use about half the chemicals. It's a good idea, but that's really expensive. And the one Noah did, it was a standalone. I did not like the way it filled, and I didn't like the way you dump it. It just seems like it takes way too long. But I loved the design of it. It looked way sturdier than these. You got to be so careful with these here because they're just really old, and the little spirals can snap off. I have a second one of these, and a few of the little spirals, they just break. This is like a Bakelite substance here, and this cracked on me. I dropped it once, and I had to glue the edge right there. I don't think you can see that, but I did have to glue it. I dropped the lid once and broke one of the clasps off that stops it. Had to glue that back on. So these things are a little bit fragile, these here. But that Filmomat's nothing to laugh at. That's a good... it's a good looking tank. There is also another tank that's made by a company, I don't have one, that was made by a company called the Superior Bulk Film Company. And they made a Super 8, 50-foot Super 8 processing tank. And I've never gotten my hands on one. They pop up on eBay sometimes. They're pretty inexpensive, only $50 or $100, something like that. You know, but I've never gotten my hands on one. They look a little bit similar, but not. Does that make any sense? Jobo makes one. They make a drum. Have you seen the drum? It was, I can't remember what it's called, the professional drum processor. But you basically just wrap your film around and around and around and around this drum. Obviously the emulsion has to be out because that's what you're processing. I don't know how you would do remjet with that one. Or I don't know if maybe around the edge, you know, if those little grooves, if the film is just barely catching on the edges, I don't know. I've never used one. They're a little pricey also, but I think that actually goes in your Jobo processing tank too. Film, I wonder what the price is. Well, for the one Larry that goes in, I don't know. I think they're around $1,000 US for the standalone one, which quite frankly is right around what they're charging on eBay. What some sellers are trying to get for those, you know, the 100-foot tank. They're not Lomo. They're not made by Lomo, but they look like Lomo tanks. And I have 2 of those as well. The other one, the one that rotates inside their tank, I know that one's 1,500 euros, which is about 1,600 US. Get one, Mike. I love this. I have 2 of these. One of them my brother has, the other one right now, but the other one, it needs a lot of help. So I got this one. In fact, I want to get another one just in case. There is 3D printer plans for Lomo style tanks. They're on Thingiverse. And I also saw a 3D printed plan on there for one that was very similar to Bonnie 2, that Filmomat that stands upright. I don't know. I have a 3D printer, but it's one really old one. I've never even used it, so I'm not sure how well those would turn out. I've seen some that people have tried to do, and they just don't come out well. I think you'd be best suited maybe CNC in one, maybe out of metal. Oh, that was Gordon. I'm sorry. Sorry, Gordon. I thought that was Bonnie that asked. I'm so far behind. 1,500 euro, if I remember correctly. Yes, Bonnie, that is correct. Fully made out of plastic. Oh, I didn't know what they were made out of. Okay. This part is plastic too? Because the one Noah did was metal, but that was the standalone one. You make model in your looks nice. But it had, yeah, Barry. I thought it was a aluminum reel. 1449, fully manual. Ooh. Well, thank you for looking, Bonnie. Switar zoom lens for your Bolex. Yeah, those Switars are nice. What is that, Mike? I'm trying to read what system that is. Oh, and I did catch your other comment. I much prefer the Lomo UpB1A over the bigger tank. Larry, the difference with Kodachrome was that the color layers were added during processing. And I believe K14, there were 14 separate steps in the process itself. So they added the couplers into the process itself, and they had to actually expose those layers as they processed them. It was a really difficult process. Hey, Russell. Thanks for stopping by. Surely hitting the send button by all. Yeah. All right, so I want to move this out of the way. I want to show you guys. I have two, but I'm kind of messed up my other one, my large tank. Oops. Oh, and I did make it. That's loud. I did make a little end cap for the hose as well. This is just, I use this foam for a lot of stuff because it's light proof. I just rolled a piece up and I twist it on. It's overkill, I know, but I just want to make sure I don't accidentally expose. Woo! Here is the one we're talking about, the larger fake Lomo tank, and I did the same thing here. I just made a little cap for it. This is a little bit different, but similar. There's things I like and things I don't like about it. I like that it fills quickly. My particular example, they did make some that you can do more than one roll of film at a time. Both of the ones that I have, you can only do one roll at a time. And this only does 16 millimeter. You would think that if you flip it over, that you could do 35. But you can't. That's like 32 millimeters. So I don't know if I could make a spacer to fit in there, but I used this tank yesterday. This one spins backwards, counterclockwise. And the one thing I don't like about this particular one is this bottom plate here versus my other 100-foot reel or spiral. This is really flexible. You see, can you just see that? See how that's flexible? I don't want to overly flex it, but it's almost like a rubber plastic. I'm trying to think what that, like a Frisbee kind of. And the bad thing about that is over time, what has happened is, now I've remedied it a little bit, but over time, what's actually happened is it's kind of doing a bowl where the outer edges are kind of flaring up now, just because of the kind of plastic it is and the heat and the use and the chemicals, it's sort of bowling on me, not bowling. So what I've had to do is I put foam spacers all around it when I store it, and then when you tighten down this center nut here, it separates here. It kind of opens that up like that, so that when I'm ready to use it, it actually has lately really been spooling on nice. But what was happening before I did that, and why I stopped doing 100-foot lengths for customers, was because I would get about 60 or 70 feet in, and then the film would just start stacking on top of itself. And it just got so frustrating. In the darkroom, just constantly pulling film out of this thing. I mean, it takes about, it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to load this spiral, maybe 10. But I could do that UpB1A in less than 5 minutes, the time I walk in and the time I walk out. But with these, I mean, it shouldn't take long, and I would be in there for an hour trying to load this tank. So now that I do use those, and they're not in there right now because I didn't put them in there because I knew I was going to take it apart for you guys. But this is the 100-footer, and what am I doing here? And the hose is nice and pliable, unlike the other one in my UpB1A. That's a really, really, really rigid hose. I love the drain system for this. I use a funnel in the top. The top is simply, it's grooved on the edge, and the groove sits around the edge there. Twist to lock it in, but I still tape it on the edges just to make sure it doesn't open. And then I just put a funnel in there, and it 15 seconds-ish to fill it with about 2 liters of chemical. That is 100 foot, Russell. Yes. You could do anything up to 100 feet. You could do 50 foot in here. Now, the other thing is, I think one thing I have noticed, getting consistent results out of 100 feet can be tricky. Very tricky. I've done a lot of 100-foot rolls of film, and a lot of them are on my channel, but getting the results to not flicker, and I don't know, one side a little more developed than the other. I don't know if it's because it takes a little bit longer to get all the chemicals in than it does the UpB1A, but it's very difficult to get them really nice and even. I get sort of a, I don't know, flickering a lot of times with this tank. So I use it a lot for my stuff. I don't use it anymore for customer stuff. Customer has to be 50 feet or less. Now, on to what do we have, Formbana? You guys know what this is. Oh, look at the top. See that? Hope there's no bugs in here. I don't use this very often. What is the model name of the 100-foot 1/2 process signal for students at work doing 50 feet at a time? It is a pain. The model number on that is, it's in Russian. I'll look here in just a second, Russell, and see if I can find anything for you. If you look on eBay, Russell, a lot of people refer to those as Lomo Tanks. Just look up Lomo. Actually, look up Lomo Tank, and then sort your results by the most expensive, and you will likely see 1 or 2 of those. And then just look in the description, you'll see if it's a 100-footer or not. Yes, Larry, they go for a lot of money. Hey, Remjet. Just bought my first 8mm tank, the one made by the Superior Bulk Company. We were just talking about that, the Superior Bulk Company. Yes, I've never had one of those, and I would love to know how well that performs for you. You're welcome, Russell. This is also a 100-foot tank. Now, this particular one, by the way, these are just little beads, my kids' craft beads. These handles here, mine didn't have anything on top, so I drilled those holes out a little bigger. put the little beads on there, and it makes it easy to turn. This is also a 100-foot processing tank. A little more manual. You got to put those together. And I've only used this just a handful of times because I don't know why. It takes a long time to process your film in this. But it will do 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter up to 100 feet. There is one, it's not made by Morse. It's a USSR version, or former USSR version. It's black. It doesn't have the re-exposure window here on the front. It'll do Super 8 and 16 millimeter. Excuse me. It's all black, and I think the reels inside are even black plastic. I have seen a mod, however, a non-destructive mod to be able to use your reels for Super 8 as well. These reels click and turn, almost kind of like the Patterson deal, where you click, pull up, click back, lock them in place. There's 35 millimeter, click, turn. There's 16 millimeter. Now you obviously have to load your film. Let me see if I can show you. Let me do this side because it makes it stand up better. You have to load your film. Again, I've only used this about 4 or 5 times, but you have to load your film on one side. You put your daylight spool back in here on the other side, and you got to spool it all the way onto one of these. Then you take the daylight spool out, you snap the other end of that film onto the other one of these, and you or wind it back over, or just be ready to process. One or the other. So you obviously want them both set on the same side, so they're both on 16 millimeter. I haven't processed 35 millimeter other than still film. This is a very labor intensive developing tank, because what you have to do is, once you have your film, and your film runs across the front of this roller right here. There's a little roller inside there, and you're supposed to run emulsion side across the front of that roller back over to the other reel. The theory behind that is, if you're doing a reversal film and you need to do re-exposure, at the correct time you would shine a light inside this little window as you crank the film and re-expose your film. Or should I say, yeah, re-expose, not expose, it's already been exposed. Excuse me. So the theory is, you put your lid on, you snap it down, it's light tight, you have your drain hole right here in the front, drain your chemicals. You have your fill right here, this little funnel style right on top, and I have found that you still want to use a funnel because it just instantly overflows. But when you use a funnel and turn it a little and pour it in, ooh, it goes in quick. So you wind one side. Takes about a minute and 15 seconds. As soon as it hits the other side, boom, you want to wind the other side. And you got to do that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and well, you get the gist. Until you're developed. When you're developed, pop this off, you pour your developer, fill it with water, you got to go back and forth again, just to stop. And then you got to do the same thing with your fix, or if you're doing reversal, and you got to do it with your bleach, and these are not Remjet friendly tanks either. If you're curious to know if you can do Remjet film in this tank, take a peek at my video. I did one where I did ECN2 in this tank as well. These are tough. These are tough tanks to master. Getting the times right. Now, I will say the results were pretty decent for the first roll I did, the black and white roll that I did on my channel. Came out pretty good, actually, I thought. I mean, it wasn't bad at all. But for the most part, these tanks, this was a fun experiment. It's probably going to spend most of his life in here. But don't discount these. These are not overly expensive. Put it back in the box here. If you're looking to do 100-foot rolls and you just want to do black and white negative, that might be your best option, because I got pretty good results from doing it that way, honestly. I mix up all my own chemicals for ECN2 and for black and white. For E6, I have to buy the kits, and they're very expensive these days. Though I am going to attempt to do, I saw it somewhere, I am going to attempt to do the black and white process, where you process it first in black and white, re-expose, this is Kodachrome, re-expose to light, put it back in, and then you process it in either C41 or ECN2 chemicals to get a slide film or a reversal. So we're going to try that. I'm going to see what happens. I saw a guy do it on YouTube. We're going to see if we can do it. He did it with still film. I'm going to see if I can do it with Cine film. I don't know if I'm going to try it in the $42 a roll 7294. I do have a couple rolls left of, I actually have some 7285, the old 100D in 16 millimeter. So maybe I'll spool down a little bit of that, shoot it, and just see if we can, you know, see if it'll work that way. But I'm very curious to know if we process our own film in black and white and ECN2, if we can get it to look like we used E6. We'll find out. Stay tuned. If I film my crazy drunk, can I submit? Yes, you can, Rich. Submit it. Everybody has their own style of horror. Tank is in good shape. Mine is rough and cracked. See, so you'll find 10 of those before you that are all beat up before you find a good one. I had to wait for a while, but you're right about that. Seriously scary sometimes, taken away by the cops. Is a drunk tank? No more. Take him to the drunk tank. Oh boy. Hey, Nicholas. You know what? Here's the thing, Nicholas. I'm glad you mentioned that. There's Robert. Hey, thanks for stopping by, Robert. That's another pro to this Morse tank versus this. If you're using this is a 100-foot tank. This is a 100-foot tank, right? This takes almost exactly 1 liter of chemicals to do 100 feet. This, bare minimum, you want 1.75, and that's just going to barely cover the top of your reel. So you really want 2 to 3 liters of chemical for these tanks. I use 2, but you really should probably use a tad bit more. 2 covers it pretty well. So half the chemicals in that Morse. So if you're just using like an E6 kit, which I think would work probably pretty decent in there. If you're going to use an E6 kit, you usually buy those in 1 liter kits. That'll do a 100-foot roll. I just don't know if you could keep it temperature consistent enough, because you have to, even though it's only a very brief first developer for E6, I don't know if you can keep the temperatures right for long enough, because this, you know, if you're using a bigger tank, what is E6? Is it the first developer is really short, like 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. In here, it's going to be more like 9 to 10 minutes, because I usually triple in this, because you're not actually developing all your film at once. It goes back and forth and back and forth. New to all of this, including all consumables, what does it cost to develop per roll after purchasing the developer? I did a breakdown. That's a really good question, Robert. I did do a breakdown with my ECN2, and it was so much cheaper, for me anyway. Like I say, I make up all my own chemicals. Give me 1 second, I want to show you guys something really quick. I'll be right back. Yes, I wear shorts. I've shown this before in my ECN2 how-to video, and I think in their description, Robert, if you look in the description, because I can't remember right offhand, I think I put in the description how much it cost me to do this, but this is for ECN2. Now, for black and white, I use HC110, and that stuff, by the way, I now use FPP110, which is the same stuff. But it's a lot cheaper than HC110, and it's the same stuff. It's awesome. It's like 30 bucks a bottle, and one bottle will last you a lifetime. Well, you, but not me. So here's what look at this. This is what I do for my ECN2, and I know we're running a little long, but That's okay. That was a couple minutes late. I make these kits, right? And they're just for me. I don't sell them or give them or anything. But I have a little post-it note here because I ran out of CD3, but I have some more now. So I have to add to that. But I make up these kits for ECN2, and I make 2-liter kits, and I have them all numbered, and everything is in order of how you add it to your water. And for me, I make 2-liter kits because my 2-liter kit will work in my big 100-foot tank. It'll also work in my UpB1A. It'll also work in here. And I just keep recycling it until you can't recycle it anymore. And I usually get about, I don't know, about 8 rolls of film out of one. And that's 100-foot rolls of film. I stretch my chemicals, by the way. Out of one batch of this, and I want to say this cost me about $7, somewhere in that range, between $7 and $8 to do one whole 2-liter kit of ECN2. A lot cheaper than buying it online for me. Anyway, I can't badmouth. I think that those kits are great, but you can buy ECN2 kits from Cine still. I don't know how much they are anymore. I think they're around $40, 30 or $40 for 1 liter. And I'm doing them for $7 or $8. Oh, Mike, I had a Lomo R16. I wish I still had it. If you ever tried an R16 camera, there is a 200-foot mag for one that sits on a 100 Swedish crowns, 9 to 10 US dollars, without any bids that I might buy in case I ever pick one up. Yes, Bonnie, I missed your post, but yes, I have, I used to own an R16, and I liked it, but I did not have the magazine for it, and I have a ton of 200-foot rolls of film, by the way, my favorite stock. It's old, so it's not in great shape, but I do have lots of 200-foot rolls, probably 20 or so, of Plus X, and I've kind of been holding off because I either want to get a 200-foot mag for my Aeroflex, which they have, they're very hard to find, or another R16 with their 200-foot mags, the little Mickey Mouse ears. I'm developing, I'm totally lost. Yeah. You know, once you do it, you're going to be hooked. You will be hooked. You're a shooter, not a chemist. You know, I had a discussion with my wife yesterday. We were trying to figure out great risk. Oh, thanks, Mike. We were trying to figure out what, you know, kind of like what my topic was going to be a couple days ago, I think. And she said, well, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? And I said, I don't care a whole lot about why something does what it does. I care a lot more about the fact that it does what it does. I know what I need to know. I know just enough to know what the chemicals are for, but not enough to know, to be able to tell you exactly what each chemical does to the film. Does that make any sense? Because that doesn't interest me. I'm way more interested in the relaxing process and the beautiful grainy results that you get with motion picture film. So I hope that makes sense. I am now at, well over an hour and 12 minutes. Let me make sure I covered everything. Oh, and one more thing I want to mention when it comes to processing is Remjet. And Remjet's on this stream, by the way, so blame him or her. Yeah, it's something you have to deal with in your process most of the time, unless you just process Kodachrome or black and white. Remjet is just that nasty anti-halation layer and anti-static layer on the base side of your film that has to be dealt with. I can tell you right now, if you shoot Vision stock, especially new Vision stock, late Vision 2 or any Vision 3 stock, you're going to want to remove that Remjet before you dump your developer into your tank. And it's easy to take it off, real easy to do. You do your mix. My particular mix, some people disagree with me. I tried several ways. I've looked at Kodak references for it. What works for me, and I settled on, is soda ash or washing soda or sodium, sodium carbonate. I use 4 tablespoons You don't have to be exact. And then I use about 1 tablespoon of baking soda or sodium bicarbonate. I mix those together with 1 liter of water. So you adjust it as you go higher. So I double it if I'm going to go to 2 liters of water. I mix it, and you want to mix the water before you dump the chemicals in. The baking soda will dissolve easily. That soda ash or that sodium carbonate, it'll clump if you're not mixing as you're pouring it. Let it dissolve, let it all mix almost till it's clear. I let it about 15 minutes. Dump it in. You don't even necessarily need to agitate that too much, because that in itself is not going to remove your rimjet. What that does is it adds alkaline or pH or alkaline to your film, and it starts dissolving the layer of rimjet, the glue or the layer of your rimjet. But it's not going to dissolve. Usually when you dump that, you're just going to get tinted water. It's when you add now your 2 liters or 1 liter of fresh clear water, and then you agitate the holy out of it, that's when your water's going to be pitch black. If it's not pitch black, then it's going to probably be something you have to deal with at the end. One thing I don't do anymore, and this just started a couple of weeks ago, is really old Kodachrome, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s. I don't even bother with a remjet bath removal bath anymore. And I'll tell you why, because every time I do it, my first pour is clear, or the color of what I just described, that mix. My second really good agitation is usually pretty clear. If that combination of chemicals is not dissolving and removing your rimjet in that old film, and I'm only talking about Kodachrome, then your developer and your fixer is not going to remove it either. And it's not really going to contaminate those anyway. You should be filtering that stuff anyway in between uses. But I've not had any issues whatsoever with it contaminating my developer or my fixer. I go through the process now. At the very end, I take a nice soft cloth, and the remjet just pours off. I mean, as you pull the film through that cloth and run it under water, it just cakes on. It's pretty disgusting stuff, but it's pretty fascinating by the same token what it actually does. It prevents static buildup, which can actually light your emulsion layers. Your film runs through that Cine camera really fast, so there can be a buildup of static. It also, as light enters your camera and it penetrates your emulsion and hits your base, oftentimes, apparently, some of that light could actually reflect back on and sort of halo your images. So the remjet was there to absorb that. It also helped with scratches and things like that, and then lubrication a little bit. So it was pretty ingenious, and still is to this day. But you have to deal with it. If you're going to process your own film and you're going to do anything outside of black and white film or Kodachrome, got to deal with remjet. All right, Rich, right here. Thanks for coming. Fuji Eterna to process. Fuji Eterna is not hard. I use it. It's just ECN, Russell. ECN2. Pathé move for camera auction with film in it. How does one develop Pathé film? Since I think it is 9.5. That's a very good question, Robert. You would have to make a tank. Either bucket process it or make some kind of a tank for it. I would not know how to process 9.5. I mean, the process would probably be the same, but you got to figure out how to separate the film. My movie stuff RetroScan will scan 9.5 millimeter film. I just don't have the gate for that. And I don't really want the gate for that. Smash that like button. Thank you, Jeffrey. Watching the 500. Mike got to duck out. Oh, the 500. Woohoo. Thanks, Steven. See you, bud. All right, guys, listen. I am so far over right now that I gotta roll, and I really want everybody. I for one love Rimjet though. Thank you, Rimjet. Thank you, everybody. Have a very happy and a very safe Memorial Day. And if you didn't hear that, you now see that. Say, have a safe and happy Memorial Day, everybody.
No.
She just did a Memorial Day recital at her school. She did so good. My baby.
Happy Memorial
Thank you, Nicholas.
Day.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Jeffrey. Everybody. And we won't be here next week. We'll be out of town, so there will be no live stream next Sunday. I might maybe try to fit one in during the week. I don't know yet. But as of right now, no live stream next Sunday. Sadly, we'll be out of town. Remjet, bye. Radios, take care. Thank you guys. Robert, everybody. Appreciate everybody that joins. I really do. And I'll see all of you
on the very next go round.
Thank you guys.